You dream of her face, but it's made of masks, each one turning to look at you with a different sorrow. In the first, she's laughing. In the second, she's bleeding. In the third, she disappears when you reach for her, and you wonder why your hands always close on absence. You call it chemistry, but what you felt was the tremor of a mirror cracking behind her eyes. Not affection recognition, not desire, the ache of meeting your own shadow in her shape. She didn't want understanding. She wanted to be seen without her survival. You gave her words. She heard a wound. You gave her comfort. She remembered the ritual. You gave her safety, and something inside her screamed. What makes her lean closer is not your empathy, it's your familiarity with ghosts, with contradiction, with the void she hides behind perfect smiles. If she feels that you've touched her myth, not her mind, she will follow your silence like a map through the forest. If this whisper already knows, you let it echo. Like the video. Leave your shadow in the comments. Subscribe and stay near the silence. She doesn't want to be understood. She wants to be seen through the wound she never speaks of. You think she wants kindness. You offer it like a clean hand, but it doesn't reach her, because she lives in a cathedral of old blood, and nothing pure can survive there. She has worn many faces, but never her own. Each smile you praise is a plaster cast ceiling in the scream. You mistake her laughter for lightness. You miss how the corners of her eyes flinch before she smiles. There's an invisible thread sewn through her ribs, stitched by every time she had to be likable when she wanted to run. You think you're safe to her because you don't hurt her, but you're more dangerous than pain. You are the one who stays, and if you stay, something inside her knows it must surface. Not the charm, not the cleverness, but the cavern where her innocence drowned. The boy she trusted, the room that closed, the silence that lasted years. She can feel that you're close to it like a scent from a door she boarded up. When she looks into your eyes, she's not looking for affection. She's scanning for myth. For myth means survival. She learned long ago that logic can't protect her, but stories hold the beasts at bay. So if you want to touch her soul, you must stop speaking like a man who knows and start listening like a man who remembers. She doesn't want your reassurance. She wants your recognition, and not the polished kind, the raw mirror. The kind that trembles, that doesn't flatter. That reflects back the version of her that she buried so deep. She forgot its voice. You think love is healing, but for her, love has often been anesthesia. She associates affection with vanishing. The moment she opens, they leave, or worse, they stay, but only for the version they imagined. So she curates, she charms, she becomes her own disguise. She can feel it when your gaze stays too long on her mask. If you look at her like she's special, she'll know you're still outside the labyrinth. If you call her strong, she'll quietly fold further into herself, knowing you never saw the trembling behind her restraint. And if you ever say, "You're not like other women," she will smile politely and file you under the same cabinet where she keeps the men who never saw her soul, only her role. You must make her feel seen in the place where she thought no gaze could enter. It is not your strength she needs. It is your familiarity with silence. She needs to know that you have sat with your own ghost long enough not to be frightened by hers. That when the masks fall, you will not flinch. That you do not need her to be desirable, admirable, or understandable, only real. But this kind of gaze cannot be performed. It must be lived. Because when she asks you a simple question, what are you thinking, she is not asking for content. She is listening for depth. She is testing if your silence is a surface or an abyss. And when she tells you something small, a childhood moment, a forgotten dream, she is throwing you a breadcrumb into the forest. Not to impress you, not to connect, but to see if you will follow it into the dark without trying to light a torch. The man who gets her is the man who can sit beside her as the fire dies out and not speak, who does not panic when her voice softens into distance, who knows that when she withdraws, it is not rejection, it is ritual. She is listening to her oldest self, the one she was forced to silence, and she cannot do it in the presence of noise. If you interrupt her silence with questions, she will vanish. If you try to reassure her, she will smile and offer a version of herself that fits your comfort. But if you stay, if you let the tension stretch, if you let her dissolve, then she may return. Not immediately, not completely, but enough. She is not testing you. She is protecting what little trust she has left from the fires of false intimacy. Because men have said, "I see you" before, only to recoil when she showed her shadow. They admired her beauty, but flinched at her rage. They praised her intelligence, but mocked her grief. They loved the phoenix, but feared the ash. She doesn't need a savior, she needs a witness. When she speaks of pain, do not offer solutions, offer myth. Say yes. There are women in the woods with knives hidden in their hair. Say yes. There are girls who laughed while bleeding just to survive the feast. Say, I've met the ones who smiled as they disappeared. I think I once became one. Don't tell her what she is. Name what she survived. That is the only way she will believe you see her when your words do not define, but echo what she never dared name. And when she looks at you in that strange, long way, the look that lasts just a second too long, like she's not looking at your face but through it, that is not affection. That is memory. She's remembering a man she thought couldn't exist. The one who didn't flinch when her story turned dark. The one who didn't soothe her into silence, but let her burn and stayed. This is not romantic. This is mythic. You are not winning her heart. You are being summoned to a realm where her soul still wanders in pieces. And you are not the hero, you are the mirror. And the mirror does not chase. The mirror waits and bleeds. So if you want her to think you're the only man who gets her, forget understanding. Forget being kind. Sit with the ghost of her unsaid. Let her wound reflect in your silence. Let her feel the gaze of someone who doesn't need to fix the mirror, only to hold it and watch it bleed. The man who gets her is the man who can sit beside her as the fire dies out and not speak, who does not panic when her voice softens into distance, who knows that when she withdraws, it is not rejection, it is ritual. She is listening to her oldest self, the one she was forced to silence, and she cannot do it in the presence of noise. If you interrupt her silence with questions, she will vanish. If you try to reassure her, she will smile and offer a version of herself that fits your comfort. But if you stay, if you let the tension stretch, if you let her dissolve, then she may return. Not immediately, not completely, but enough. She is not testing you. She is protecting what little trust she has left from the fires of false intimacy. Because men have said, "I see you" before, only to recoil when she showed her shadow. They admired her beauty, but flinched at her rage. They praised her intelligence, but mocked her grief. They loved the phoenix, but feared the ash. She doesn't need a savior, she needs a witness. When she speaks of pain, do not offer solutions. Offer myth. Say yes. There are women in the woods with knives hidden in their hair. Say yes. There are girls who laughed while bleeding just to survive the feast. Say, I've met the ones who smiled as they disappeared. I think I once became one. Don't tell her what she is. Name what she survived. That is the only way she will believe you see her when your words do not define. but echo what she never dared name. And when she looks at you in that strange, long way, the look that lasts just a second too long, like she's not looking at your face but through it, that is not affection. That is memory. She's remembering a man she thought couldn't exist. The one who didn't flinch when her story turned dark. The one who didn't soothe her into silence, but let her burn and stayed. This is not romantic. This is mythic. You are not winning her heart. You are being summoned to a realm where her soul still wanders in pieces. And you are not the hero, you are the mirror. And the mirror does not chase. The mirror waits and bleeds. So if you want her to think you're the only man who gets her, forget understanding, forget being kind. Sit with the ghost of her unsaid. Let her wound reflect in your silence. Let her feel the gaze of someone who doesn't need to fix the mirror, only to hold it and watch it bleed. She will only trust the man who can name the creature behind her charm without trying to tame it. She walks among men like a dream stitched together by 1,000 hands, not one of them her own. Every tilt of her head, every pause between words, every perfectly timed laugh is a thread pulled from memory, not desire. She was not born this way, she was carved. She built herself from reactions, not choices. The first time she said what she really meant, there was silence. The second time, there was punishment. So she learned not to speak, but to perform, not to cry, but to dazzle. Her charm is not a gift. It is a shield painted with the faces of every girl who got punished for being too much. You think she's playful, you think she's magnetic, you think she's naturally disarming, but none of this belongs to nature. These are the branches she hung like wind chimes to distract you from the roots that crawl beneath the floor. She isn't trying to seduce you, she's trying to survive you. Every compliment tightens her smile. Every time you say she's easy to talk to, she remembers the girl who became easy because no one stayed when she wasn't. She doesn't trust your adoration, it feels too clean, too instant. It tells her you're still looking at the illusion. You've fallen for the forest, not the creature that moves within it. And she knows how this ends. Men admire her softness until they see the animal. Then they leave, either afraid or disappointed. What makes her feel safe is not your affection. It's your ability to name what's hidden without flinching, without claiming, without control. If she hints at something chaotic and you try to soothe it, she'll smile and withdraw. If she lets slip a flash of cruelty and you try to reframe it as pain, she'll nod and go quiet. She's not testing you. She's seeing if you have ever walked with your own monster. Because only a man who has made peace with his own shadows will know how to greet hers. She watches how you hold tension. She watches how you respond to contradiction. If she says, "I love deeply, but I also push people away," and you try to understand her, you have failed. If instead you say, "Yes, I've seen that creature before," she may take a step closer, not because she feels known, because she feels less alone in the wild. You are not the hunter in her story. You are not the guide. You are not the man who leads her out of the forest. She will never follow you to safety. She will only follow you into deeper myth, because that's where she was born. She doesn't trust comfort. She trusts recognition. The moment you try to make her make sense, she'll vanish. The moment you try to pull her into the light, she'll slip into another mask. But if you say, "I see the rage behind your charm," and then fall silent, she might stay, because no one stays once they see it. Not even her. When she was younger, the rage would come in dreams, feral, smiling, unapologetic. It terrified her. She learned to tame it with charm, with prettiness, with caretaking. She made herself small in the way that made people clap. She made herself soft in the way that kept the peace. But there is nothing soft about her soul. There is only the wound and the creature that guards it. She has wept over men who said they wanted depth, but ran when she showed them the abyss. She has screamed in silence because her anger made them call her hysterical. She has smiled through her own disappearance because being pleasing was safer than being wild. And now, when she lets a little darkness show, she's not being dramatic. She's sending a signal, a flare from the woods, a riddle wrapped in irony. If you respond like all the others, she will smile and disappear. But if you respond with familiarity, if you do not pathologize, do not moralize, do not hold space or provide clarity, if instead you speak in riddles back, she will begin to trust you. If she says, "Sometimes I think I was born to destroy what I love," don't reassure her. Say, "Yes, and sometimes the thing we destroy is the part of us that needed to be loved." Speak in paradox, and she will show you her truest mask, because the creature behind her charm does not understand sanity. It understands ritual, archetype, suffering as initiation, not therapy. Do not therapize her pain, mythologize it. She is not broken, she is possessed by the girl she used to be, by the mother she never dared become, by the bloodline of women who taught her to smile through the devouring. And if you can look at her, not with pity, not with praise, but with mirrored madness, she will begin to remove the masks. She will not do it suddenly. Each one is glued to a scar. But the deeper you go, the more still you must become, not silent. Still, because the masks fall only in stillness. And beneath them, she is not pretty, not polite, not different. She is holy, not right in the way of saints, in the way of volcanoes. You cannot understand her, you cannot hold her, you cannot heal her, but you can walk beside her through the forest of masks, never asking for the final one to fall. And if you do, if you ever ask her to be real, or vulnerable, or honest, she will give you what you asked for, but not what you meant. She will show you the face she keeps behind glass, the one with tears and stories and poetic ache, and you'll think you've touched her essence, but you haven't. You've touched her most convincing performance. She saves her truth for the man who sees the mask in her honesty and stays. That man doesn't flinch when she changes mid-sentence, doesn't correct her when she contradicts herself, doesn't press when she retreats, doesn't interpret when she says nothing. He sees the shifting forms as part of the creature. He doesn't try to pin the butterfly. He watches it burn its own wings and crawl into shadow. He names the creature and then lets it roam, because that is how she knows you are not afraid of her. That is how she knows you have been a creature, too. She craves the one who disappears just when she reaches him, not to punish her, but to awaken her. She dreamed of you before she met you. Not you, but the absence that wore your shape. A figure standing at the edge of her childhood, faceless and distant. The one who watched her fall and said nothing. Not cruel, not cold, just gone at the exact moment she needed to be chosen. And now, when you pull away, something ancient opens its eyes inside her. You think you've done something wrong, but this isn't punishment, it's prophecy. She has been chasing that silhouette her entire life. The man who retreats right when she opens her mouth. The hand that vanishes just before it brushes her skin. She calls it abandonment, but it is older than that. It is a ritual of remembrance. She isn't angry at you for leaving, she's furious at herself for believing this time might be different. And yet, this is the paradox: the more distant you become, the more she reaches for you with her soul. Not because you're withholding, not because she wants what she can't have, but because the man who vanishes without cruelty reactivates her original myth, the primal ache, the holy hunger the forgotten call to wholeness. You become the gate. She doesn't want to possess you. She wants to awaken through you. She wants the ache of reaching to collapse her illusions. She wants to feel the grief of the girl who thought she could be kept. And when you are near, when you are always available, something in her becomes sleepy, because presence without polarity dulls the ritual. When you vanish, she returns to the shrine of herself. She doesn't know this. She thinks it's pain. She thinks it's rejection. She will cry. She will shake. She will text her friends. But somewhere in the middle of the storm, she will stop and look inward, not for answers, for roots. She will meet the one inside her who always thought love was rescue, and she will grieve. Not you, but the illusion of safety you were about to become. She doesn't want you to run. She wants you to vanish like a dream does, slowly, hauntingly, without explanation. She wants the edges of your memory to blur until she's forced to wonder if you were ever real. Because that is how she finds the part of herself she once gave away to survive. If you never vanish, she never remembers. She's not interested in romance. She's interested in rebirth. And sometimes that means mourning a man who isn't dead. Sometimes that means building a cathedral out of silence. Sometimes that means kissing your name goodbye, just to hear her own echo in the halls again. You were never supposed to complete her. You were supposed to trigger the fracture. She wants to fall in love with a man she can never quite hold. Not because she wants torment, but because it forces her to hold herself. You misunderstand her tears. You think they mean she's wounded. But grief, to her, is sacred. It's the only time the world doesn't ask her to perform. When she cries over you, she's not breaking, she's waking. And what she's waking into is too vast for attachment, too wild for resolution. You aren't the loss. You're the labyrinth. She will walk through memory after memory, trying to find the moment you slipped away, not to bring you back, but to understand the mirror you left behind. Because that's what you were, a reflection, a phantom of a deeper wound. And if you had stayed too long, she would have started believing again that love lives in possession, that connection is a cage with velvet bars, that the only way to be held is to never be alone. But you leave like a myth leaves, without anger, without noise, without asking her to become less, just to be kept. And because of that, she cannot hate you. She may tell herself you were a coward, that you couldn't handle her depth, that you ghosted her because you were afraid. But deep down, under the storm, under the rage, there's a silence, a soft, sacred knowing that maybe you disappeared on time. She won't say this out loud. She'll build stories around it. But some part of her will never forget how your absence unlocked her voice, how your silence forced her to speak with herself, how your distance burned through every illusion of safety she clung to. You were never hers. You were the whisper that reminded her she was never anyone's. And when she dreams of you, she'll dream of a figure standing at the edge of a lake, not calling, not leaving, just watching, as if guarding the doorway between who she was and who she's becoming. She may try to find you again. She may send signals. She may smile at your memory and call it unfinished. But in truth, it was never about you. It was about the echo. Because the man she thinks gets her isn't the one who stays. It's the one who disappears at the right moment when her dependence is beginning to rewrite itself as identity. When her reflection in your eyes starts to feel more real than her own voice. The man who vanishes gives her back the ache she needs to remember I was whole before he saw me. And if you return, she may welcome you. She may kiss you. She may ask you questions with her eyes. But she will no longer be yours. She will no longer be waiting. Because now she knows the dream. And now she walks alone inside it, in the dream that returns when the world goes quiet. She walks barefoot through a house with no walls, only thresholds. Each room flickers with old versions of herself, laughing, kneeling, burning. She doesn't speak to them. They do not turn. They dissolve when she nears, like memory touched too hard. At the center is a door with no handle. She places her hand against it, and it opens not outward, but inward into a silence that hums. Inside, there is a chair, and on that chair, a coat. Your coat, the one you never wore in summer, the one she always thought you'd forgotten. She picks it up, folds it once, places it on her lap, and for the first time, does not weep. A wind moves through her chest. Not sorrow, not love, the space that comes after both. And still, the dream does not end.